Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Golden Age podcast. And today I have Alexandra Heller with me. Alexandra, thank you so much for doing this. It's a pleasure talking to you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really excited.
Yeah, me too. So, one perfectly random question. You're in Portugal, and we'll definitely talk about that. But do you present yourself as Alexandra, and people just call you Alexandra? Oh, how do you connect with that difference?
Yeah, I'm really happy for people to pronounce my name as they would prefer and as like makes sense to them. So
Yeah.
I love the Portuguese pronunciation for sure.
Okay. Perfect. So I want to start with another random question, which is, who do you think would be a great show to cast Kvot on a TV network of the series The Name of the Wind?
Oh, wow. That is a really good question. So who like an actor to star on it
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
oh, that's a great question. I'm thinking about Quoth, and I'm thinking about what's her name? She always changed her name. Um, I don't have a great answer for it, but now
Okay.
I'm really thinking about it.
Yeah, so I'll definitely want an answer to that after
Yeah.
the show. You can go think about it and talk. Because I was reading through some of your articles in your website, and I found out that you read The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, which is a phenomenal book. Have you read like the other book?
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. So you're
Yes.
you just like me. You're waiting for the third one to be out, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's such a great book. So let's start by talking about Portugal. So
Mhm.
tell me, how did you end up here?
So I ended up here because I was living in Berlin and I got quite depressed during the winter,
Mhm.
and so was thinking about, and then I was also looking to buy an apartment, and everything in Berlin is very expensive.
Yeah.
And then I was looking at Lisbon because people talk so much about how Lisbon is lovely, and it's one of the only countries in Southern Europe that is really English friendly, and I knew that it would take me some time to learn Portuguese.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. And then also, as someone from outside the EU, it's a fairly straightforward process to gain Portuguese citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Germany, while I was there, it would have looked like I would have had to give up American citizenship in order to gain German citizenship. So really
Mm.
wanted to, I'm really trying to get an EU passport so I can live in the EU, and I've just really enjoyed it here. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
there are all those factors. And then my partner and I came to Porto, and we just immediately loved it. So yeah, that's how we got here.
Yeah. Sorry. And have you been like you've been to Lisbon? I
Mhm.
assume. Like,
Yeah.
what are the main differences that someone who doesn't come from, who's not original from Portugal, notice between Porto and Lisbon?
Yeah, I'm actually writing a blog about this because I have a lot of friends. As you probably know, like Portugal is becoming very popular to move to,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are going to Lisbon. And because that's the default, that's the kind of like, if you think about Portugal and you're thinking about, okay, want to live in a city, then you think about Lisbon.
Yeah.
And so I think that Lisbon is really great in that it has so much happening. There's so much life. Do you live in Lisbon, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'd love to have this conversation, to hear your take on this. But I think that for me, I was really looking to be able to, like, I don't like having a car and I don't like taking a taxi,
Mm.
and I really want to be able to get from one side of town to the other
Just
fairly
walking.
easily. And so, as a small town that's very walkable,
Mm-hmm.
Porto is really lovely. And
Mm-hmm.
then just we're looking to buy an apartment. And so the property prices in Lisbon are
Yeah.
quite high right now.
Yeah.
And so, whereas Porto is like, oh, wow, felt that the money could go so much further. And
Mm-hmm.
then also, Porto just has this kind of very like chill vibe. Like
Mm.
Lisbon, it feels hectic, it's happening, it's exciting. Some people really love that.
Yeah.
But now I'm, in my mid 30s. I think I'm just like wanting more quiet, chill time. Like I would just want to read a
Yeah.
book and chill out. And so Porto to me feels really lovely. But I know that
Yeah.
some people, come to Porto and they're like, oh, it's boring, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're both very beautiful cities.
Mm-hmm.
Porto has these beautiful. If you go across the bridge, to Gaia and look at Porto.
Yeah.
It's like all the tourists are there. It's because it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But Lisbon has so many beautiful sites as well. So they're
Yeah.
both very beautiful cities.
Yeah. Absolutely. I usually say that I love Lisbon. I'll be honest. It's one of my favorite cities in Portugal. And I love it here. As you said, like the action is here. Everyone is. It seems like it's a little bit like the city is always on the move. I remember, like I studied in another Portuguese city called Évora, which is in Alentejo, perfect, which is very slow paced.
Yeah.
Especially because it's really hot. So if everyone starts moving really fast, everyone starts sweating. So everyone will start to move really slow. And I remember that I was studying there, and half of the week I would spend there, and then the other half I would come to Lisbon to try to find a way to play music, because I was studying music.
Cool.
And yeah, and while I was in Lisbon, it was really weird, because I would get here and I would walk really slow because I was used to the rhythm of the city in Évora. But after like a day, I was already moving fast and trying to just like pass people on the subway and all that stuff. And so Lisbon is a really active city. However, my favorite, I don't want to say my favorite, but like Porto has like a really special place in my heart, because I like, first of all, the architecture in Porto is beautiful. I really enjoy the dark walls and the mystic of the city. I always say that Lisbon is where the action is, but Porto is where the magic is. And it's a lot, like you said, it's just like the city where you go to, at least that's my go-to, to reflect and to think about stuff. And I remember doing like this solo travel to Porto just to spend some time alone. And that really made me fell in love with just the reflective side of the city. So yeah. And you just said that for you, it was really important to just walk around the city, right? And that, I assume, is because you're very very big activist of the environment. And especially one of the things that I really enjoyed was in your Twitter, in your bio, you mentioned Solarpunk, which is something that I've discovered only a couple of months ago, and I fell in love with all the aesthetics and all the idea. So for everyone who's listening and doesn't know, and it definitely relates, at least to me, to a modern golden age. So for everyone listening, can you please just say a few words about what Solarpunk is?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, I'm not sure that I have the best definition of it, but I would say it is kind of an aesthetic. To me, it's about like kind of using technology to foster a real like sort of like ecologically beautiful world that's like technologically enhanced. So it's, it's like solar panels and like whatever. But also, like, if you just Google Solarpunk and then go to images, like you can see these beautiful, like, it kind of looks like Singapore to me, where it's like you have all these like beautiful architecture with all these gardens. It's all about like integrating everything, like nature into everything, into our architecture, into like these beautiful planned cities. And to me, it just represents like happiness to see all of these, like to see these cities, but they're like so flourishing with biodiversity, with plants. I can imagine that like the insects really love to live there, whereas I don't think insects particularly, there's not a lot of good things unless you're a fly. It's like not as great to live in a city, whereas versus the countryside. So that's kind of what I think about.
Yeah, and so where does that passion with the environment and with nature comes from? Have you always been like that, or did anything happen in your life that made you more aware of that? How did that start?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because I was thinking about this, and I think that like I have had a lot of people, you'll find if they're environmentalists, they'll have had a very outdoorsy childhood. So they'll have really connected to nature. And I don't know that I necessarily had that, but I definitely did have a few like camping trips where I was like, wow, this is really incredible, like nature is incredible. And I grew up in California, so there's a lot of really beautiful nature there, as is everywhere, I think. But I really connected. I think I feel really connected to trees in particular. I don't know, like I would there would be these few willow trees on my way home for my walk, and then I would like just sit under them on my way home from school, and then I'd like feel like I was connecting with them, and they're just like kind of there for me as a support. And I've just really kind of connected to trees. And then I don't know, ultimately it's like we have to have a healthy world to be healthy, happy people. So it just seems like so clear that we need to support the environment if we care about living ourselves.
Absolutely. That's so fascinating, the relationship with the trees. Like, have you ever like hugged a tree? Have you had that experience?
For sure.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that I remember. I don't remember how I ended up doing it, but it was like some kind of outdoors activity with a bunch of friends, probably while I was young, or maybe it was just my granddad who incentivized me to do it. And I remember that I felt really good. It's almost like I felt like by embracing the tree was embracing myself as well. Awesome. And so, of course, you work on that area, and I have a bunch of questions that are not work related, but I do want to ask you, like, you've been in a bunch of different places, and especially working as in marketing, and you were like, you learned how to do marketing and end up going again to a bunch of different places, but right now you're in a very special place. I read your Medium article about starting as a marketing manager. So talk us a little bit about where you are and what you guys do.
Yeah, so right now I'm working with Bitgreen, and this is at the intersection of blockchain technology and sustainability. So basically what Bitgreen is it's a blockchain that doesn't waste a lot of electricity. People often hear that with blockchain tech, but now there's further innovation where blockchains don't have to waste, or like, you know, they don't waste such an incredible amount of energy at all. And so this is a blockchain for sustainability that's trying to do a few things. And first, it is a blockchain for other sustainability projects to build on it. And then it's ultimately trying to solve for the funding gap in impact investment. So the goal of the project is to get 1 trillion into sustainable project financing within 10 years. And so 1 trillion sounds like a lot, but actually, like, we need trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in sustainable projects in order to combat climate change, let alone all of the other environmental problems that we're facing. So I think it's very ambitious. It's very inspiring project, but also it's looking at there are a lot of obstacles with funding sustainable projects, and so it's really improving that. But also with blockchain platforms, it's an open network, and so builders can come in and use, okay, you know, hey, here's some carbon credits. Now we can build things with carbon credits, or hey, here is a collateralized loan, a tokenized loan. Now we can build with those tokens and build different DeFi, you know, protocols with it. So there's a lot of room for innovation, and I think that we need innovation in order to go to get beyond where we are now, because we're obviously having trouble financing the sustainability that we need.
Why do you think that is? Like, why is it so hard to actually fund sustainable projects?
So let's say you've got a wind farm and you're trying to fund a wind farm. I mean, maybe a wind farm isn't, like, let's say it's in some sort of area that doesn't receive funding as easily as, you know, maybe European countries or the US, maybe it's in Africa, maybe it's in a developing country somewhere. And so there's not as much financial infrastructure. Then, you know, it's like, what tends to happen is that you'll have the funding that is locked up for many years. Like, to even, okay, let's say that they can find the funding, whatever. There has to be a lot of due diligence that has to be done on that deal in order to do the funding, and so that takes maybe an analyst a month or two, and then the funding itself is locked up for maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years, maybe 30 years. And so it's that's a lot of capital to be locked up. So it's not liquid. And so basically people can't get their investment out. And then it becomes like less attractive, if you can't, if it's not a liquid investment.
Yeah.
So those are some of the issues that happen with sustainable projects.
Yeah, and also like I specifically, I don't work on that specific area about sustainability and environment, even though I of course am a fan of it. But I have a great friend who does, and one of the things that he told me is that right now it started to change the availability of monetary funds of money basically to actually fund this kind of projects, because like before there wasn't like, it wasn't easy to get funding on one of these projects, right? Like people were still a little bit doubtful about how would that work, and if we really do need to actually address climate change, which I think basically it's obvious, right? I'm in Lisbon. At least today we have like 30 degrees in May. Tomorrow we'll have 22, and we don't have sun. Like there's a bunch of things about that just prove that it's time for us to invest on this area. So changing a little bit of topics. Before we go to specific crypto, blockchain, and altruism, I do want to talk about another thing, which is, while I was reading in your blog, you talked about psychedelics and about any experiences that you have, and like there were a bunch of quotes that you wrote that really struck me, but one of the things that you said in a specific article, which is the title is something like "That Time I Took Psychedelics with a Bunch of Online." I'm not sure what the title is, but you said that you were going through like a more negative phase, right? And you find that psychedelics were maybe something that would help you. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, like why did that happen, if that's okay, and how did you end up doing psychedelics and the effect that it had on you?
Yeah. So I mean, that particular time experience that I was talking about, I had I mean, I wasn't diagnosed as depressed, but I was feeling down, and so I kind of like, I hadn't really experienced this feeling like elsewhere in my life. Like anxiety is very common for me, but feelings of depression really not that common. And so I sort of made this pledge to myself to do whatever I could to improve and to take care of this, because I thought this is really it's an intense experience. And so I was like exercising, eating better, but psychedelics have been shown to create different like neural pathways in your brain. So if you're kind of like in a loop about dark depressing thoughts, you might be able to find a way to break out of that. And so I had this experience. I was looking to do psychedelics legally. I Googled online and found a center in Amsterdam or outside of Amsterdam. And so went and had this experience, and ultimately had, I think, just this confrontation with a lot of fear. And I didn't, like, I already was feeling better from like, I wasn't feeling depressed once I had this experience. But after this experience, I also like continued to, I feel like had a more positive outlook. And it seemed to help me integrate these feelings and just be in a better state of mind. And I think that mental health is something that a lot of us deal with, and I think having better tools and is important.
Yeah, of course. And I really enjoyed to read that, because it takes me to one of the great topics that I want to talk about with you about, which is altruism. And like, there was this really good quote that was something like, the only good in the world is that in which we create. I think that is right. And that really struck me, because it makes absolute sense, right? Like and maybe there's good in the world that we don't create, but others have created for us, right? And it's really important for us to appreciate that. Like I read another article that you called 10 euros, right? Which was basically the story where someone asked you for money and you gave them 10 euros, and suddenly, for some reason, like I was doing research about your to this podcast, and suddenly the word altruism started popping out of nowhere in places where I've never seen it. And so I was wondering, like, how if you could talk about your relationship with altruism and how did that start?
Yeah. So it originally started with seeing, I just ran into Giving What We Can, which is a membership where people take a pledge to donate 10% of their income for life to effective organizations. And at the time, I was managing an e-commerce company. Even though that e-commerce company was creating good in the world through supporting sustainable agriculture, I felt like out of alignment with my values of helping the world and wanting to use my life to help the world, which I think is something that so many of us have. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe I can just donate money, and that donation is a path to fulfill my this need and this value that I have. And so I started, and I'm pretty, like, I'd say financially conservative on some level. Like I don't take it lightly to, give away money. But I really felt like it was beautiful. And I actually felt like my life improved. I felt like my relationship to money improved. And I felt like I finally was living my values. And so I really had a transformation and it's also really cool because it's like I could just click some buttons. Like it wasn't that hard for me. Like, yeah, I had to make the money or whatever, but I was already doing that in my life. I was lucky to be in a position where I had, I wasn't just living paycheck to paycheck. I could give. And then I just felt like I had transformation from that. And it's interesting. I actually went to interview people other people who had also taken this membership, because I was trying to figure out, like, oh, do they find that this is actually kind of hard to do? Like, it's hard to, like, give, thousands of dollars away that, you felt like you had worked really hard for. And ultimately I found that the people that I talked to, at least, were far more altruistic than I was, and they just, like, love to live for others. They could just see, like, oh, another's happiness is equal to my own, and, like, $1 to me makes such less of a difference to me than $1 to somebody else who's living perhaps in extreme poverty, or who to prevent them from XYZ disease, or to an animal to prevent them from living such suffering in factory farming. So anyway, it was really inspiring, actually. But I struggled to find somebody who, had the same struggle.
Yeah. So is there any particular investment that you've made that really strikes out as, like, something that you're really proud of? Because I remember, like, just to share, like, I there was a moment in my life where I was starting to feel a little bit more comfortable around money. Fortunately, I'm back at it, but there were some downsides. But I remember that there was a moment where I was starting to do it, and I decided that I wanted to give something. And there was, like, this, I don't remember the name, but I had been doing some research, and I found this organization that would help schools in developing countries. And I remember looking at my first paycheck and thinking, I'm going to put some money there. And that felt amazing. And so how about you? How are some of your personal donations that you're really proud of?
Yeah. I think that's really beautiful. And I think it is something that, I think it just enhances my quality of life, really. I mean, just to be able to feel like I've contributed to something larger than myself. I would say, like, I recently donated to an organization called Legal Impact for Chickens, and this is in the US, but it's really cool. It's just this woman who's a lawyer, and then she just, like, wants to have better like living conditions for chickens. And
Mm-hmm.
so she's just like figuring out like legal ways to do that. And so she's just like a very creative, inventive lawyer. And
Yeah.
it's really lovely because she's at the beginning of this organization. And so I got to talk to her and I got to like hear all about it. And for me, like one thing that I really don't like looking at is animal suffering. I just like get extremely sad. And so I was talking to her about it, and she just loves, like, she doesn't really think about it. She just like loves doing law, and she loves, like, she recognizes the animal suffering, and sometimes she
Mm-hmm.
has to review footage from like farms where they're abusing chickens. But like ultimately, she's just excited to be able to like live her passion and also like benefit chickens. So
Yeah.
that's one area that I thought was really cool.
Yeah. And like, besides the overall feeling that you get, were there any more changes in your worldview when you started donating more money? Like, you talked about it improved your relationship with money and aligned with your values. Like, talk a little bit about those differences as well.
Yeah. I think that it's kind of like you get to be the person that you dream of being, like that's ultimately what I would like to be. I have these values. I'd
Mm-hmm.
like to live in alignment with them. I'm not always, I'm, often failing of them, but I think
Yeah.
that the journey of aspiring to those, I think is really beautiful. And to see any progress on that makes me
Mm-hmm.
feel just so inspired and um, yeah, just in love with like how we can use our lives for good and for improving the world. But
Yeah.
also like I do have a magical thinking about donating 10% of your income. Like I actually think it's like just creates some like loop of abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just from very different sources, I've like heard this be mirrored. Like somebody mentioned something like, oh, if you donate 10%, then like the people that I've seen do that like inevitably are become successful. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's some just like feed, like you're
Mm-hmm.
allowing the money to kind of come through your
Flow.
life and to
Yeah.
flow. And so I know that that's magical thinking, but I really love it, and I think it's just kind of a beautiful way to think about it.
Yeah. I'm a fan of some magical thinking. I'm not I'm not at all resistant to it. Not too much, but I'll
Yeah.
definitely agree that that's something. Yeah, because that's the thing. Like even if it's something as simple as when you give, you suddenly feel more aligned with your values, and because you feel
Yeah.
more aligned with your values, people notice that and end up offering you opportunities that otherwise they wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
But that's definitely something that I believe. And so and moving a little bit beyond, like, there was in that article that I mentioned about the 10 years, you wrote a sentence that really moved me, and I'm going to read it because I don't want to misquote it. And it's something like, I thought what I could buy for $3,650 dollars, that would be better than having these experience 365 times. And you say that because you're basically I mean, I'll let you explain it. So explain to us what this sentence means and why did you write it?
Yeah. So I was out getting a coffee one morning when I was in Berlin, and and then I walked by someone and he asked me for change. And then he explained it. Oh, he hadn't had a coffee yet. And, I was there with a coffee, and I'm like, well, yeah, of course, that makes a lot of sense to me. I also want coffee. And so I opened up my wallet, and just like on a whim, I was like, oh, here's a 10, and I gave him a 10. And yeah, and he was just like really touched and really moved, and he was like, oh well, I'll buy you a coffee. It's just like, and I was like, I already have a coffee. It's just like kind of like he's just like trying to like figure out what he could do to give back to me, because
Yeah.
he's like, wow, that's a lot of value or whatever. And and it didn't really matter to me like what happened with this. I mean,
Yeah.
it did, like I care about this individual, but ultimately what I got out of this was like that was a really meaningful experience.
Yeah.
And how the 10 euro per day of having that experience, like that's worth more than anything else I could buy.
Yeah.
And if I were to do that every day, how much would that cost me? It'd be $3,650.
Yeah.
Like that seems like the most meaning that I could get from this money.
That's valid, yeah. And making a segue, you said that you said this in the website of the project that we're about to talk about, that at a certain point, contributing to solving the world's problems is more satisfying than anything money can buy. That, of course, is on the website of the Crypto Philanthropy Club. And I was wondering if you explain to us, as you are the founder, how did that start? What you guys do? Tell us a little bit more about that project. Because I believe, and sorry, but just to have this note, because I believe that almost anything that you talk about is related to a modern golden age, which is the topic that I want to get into afterwards. But I truly believe that this project has a direct connection to what we can expect from a modern golden age. So tell us a little bit more about Crypto Philanthropy Club.
Yeah. So basically, I started a Crypto Philanthropy Club because I'm in the sort of crypto space, and often people will, they'll have some crypto, it'll go up in value, and then my hypothesis is that these people maybe they don't recognize the opportunity that they have to share this newfound wealth with others, and actually, this will be more valuable and meaningful to them than any material possessions that they might come by, assuming that their base material needs are met. So that's kind of the Crypto Philanthropy Club is trying to advocate for giving in the crypto community. And so it's a slow-going project because I'm busy, but I'm working on resources like donation guide for taxes in various countries and how to donate crypto, because it's not always that straightforward how to do it. And then also kind of I'm going to be like showcasing different causes that people can contribute to. However, the market just crashed, so I might let it recover a little bit
before that. But well, that often will happen, and the market will go up again. And once they do, people will. Because I'm curious, like you just mentioned that it's not that straightforward to just have a bunch of crypto in whatever coin it is and donate it to a cause. Like, how does that work? Guide us through that process.
Yeah. So there's various different ways of doing it. And that's, I have a podcast for Crypto Philanthropy Club and starting to interview different ways. So there's a crypto native platform, which is Giveth. And so if you have, I think if you have either Ether or USDC, you can donate that directly to these, like there's different projects that are there. And so, so you can create a project. You could say, hey, I want to feed the homeless. And then people can send you crypto to fund that. Or you can just like see all of the different initiatives going on that are on the Giveth platform, and then you can donate directly. And that's pretty cool because it's all just like crypto to crypto. And then you receive Give tokens back because as a sign of your donation. So that's one option. There's a lot of more traditional organizations and charities have listings of addresses of Bitcoin or Ether or whatever that they accept donations in. There's also every.org, which is a really good donation site. It has all these different cool platforms of different charities on there, and then they'll accept major cryptocurrencies for, like, I think Bitcoin, Ether for like many of them. And then also if you want to donate above a certain amount, then they will set up a unique address if it's like a more esoteric crypto.
Yeah.
So, awesome. But there's more options than that, but those are some top level ones.
And people should follow Crypto Philanthropy Club, and when they do, you'll probably post them in the future, so that's fine. So let's get into the modern golden age, and just to give you a little bit of context, I've told this before in the podcast, but when I was starting this whole podcast started because of that Visa meme. I'm assuming you know Visa, which says that if you point out the old, like, these domino pieces starting with friendly ambitious nerds, we'll get to the golden age of humanity. And I remember that the first time that I looked at that meme, that really blew my mind, and I was thinking about it, and I realized that I want to be a part of this. I don't know how, but I really want to be part of this. And so what I did was I looked at what I could do, and I said, I like talking with people. I like connecting different people. So let me try and have conversations about it and maybe connect people that otherwise wouldn't know each other. And so I started this podcast because of that. And when I did, I spent a lot of time because I believe that if I was going to create this podcast, I should have like this perfectly clear vision about what I think a modern golden age is. And then I realized that that made no sense because to me, being in the modern golden age, it's about co-creating and having like this really straight vision about it made no sense because what I want to do is I want to ask other people what modern golden age looks like to them and then try to understand some common points between all these different dances. So what are the common values and practices and beliefs that we have to build that modern golden age? So that being said, I would love to hear your take on it. Like, what do you think a modern golden age is? What does it look like? What are some of the values, practices, beliefs? Tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say that I love this project so much, and I love that you're coming from this point because I feel like it's easy for me, at least in the modern, getting so much news and so much information. Like it's very easy to get bogged down into like everything that's wrong and everything that's happening, and especially if you're following environmental news. Environmental news doesn't tend to get better, so it just feels like really bad. So I just really love that it's like to open this, like to start the conversation like this and be like, okay, what is it that we want to create? And because it's totally possible. And then how can we create that? And what is it even that we want to create? And I love that so much. And I think that for me, like a modern golden age, I guess like there's some experiences that I've had where I've had like, oh wow, like life could be like this. And one of them is discovering ecstatic dance for the first time. I don't know if you're okay.
Yeah, I've done it once and I've loved it.
Yeah. But so this is like when I first discovered ecstatic dance, and I'll just to give a quick definition, it's kind of where you are, it's like a moving meditation, and the point is to, for me at least, is to move in a way where I feel the most freedom and like really just let the music move through you. And I think that for me, I was really tapping into just how much freedom, and then how free people in this environment really seemed. And then some spaces that you go to, it'll be like really beautifully curated, and the people seem so like tapped into the beauty of themselves. And to me, like it's something about like seeing the beauty of each individual and in their movement pattern, in how they're dressing, or just how they are embodied. And to me, there's something that like that's something that we're missing, I think, in a lot in, but we can expand so much as a society. And I think I was reading a little bit about how you were working with kids to show them alternate paths of entrepreneurship, or how you don't have to just be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. And I really love this too, because this is also, I feel like a lot of people feel like over time society has boxed them into being something that maybe they don't want to be. And I think a golden age for humanity would be people discovering their unique gifts and how to share them with society.
And embracing that freedom, and it makes a little sense because one of the things that I really want to do is like these first definitions, and I know because I have some friends that are engineers and really narrow guys, and they'll listen to the podcast and they'll say, "Well, that's beautiful, but what's the plan of what are you going to do? What are the concrete steps?" And to me, it's really comfortable to have like these, first of all, like visions. Because I think that we need to align different visions, even if they're not that clear, but in order to get to something that which then can serve as inspirations to create those steps. And what you just said, like this whole organization of a society where you embrace your own, where you're free basically to embrace whatever your tastes are, makes total sense. And so what are some of the values that you believe that we should share in order to get into a modern golden age? Like I'll give you two of mine. So one of them was, and I talked about this in the previous episode with Rob, which is courage. I believe that the main value in modern golden age should be courage, because once again, you want freedom, but to be free you need courage. You need it's difficult to be free. Like the example that you were saying, when I was talking with kids, and kids would be, I could either be a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure, and to actually embrace the idea of, no, I'll be a failure, but I'll do something that I really enjoy, like that takes courage. And so I do believe that, and not only that, but if we want to make sustainable changes, even if environmental ones, we need courage to do it. We need courage to make our choices in order for us to get into a modern golden age. So that's one of the core values. The second one that you just mentioned is beauty, and I see beauty as a value as well, because it's so funny, because you were saying that there were moments where you felt like you had like this experience of a modern golden age, and automatically I started to think about what were those moments to me, and I realized that all of them were in fact related to beauty. I remember a specific thing, like entering in Louvre in Paris, and for a while I had like this painting in my phone as a screen lock. And I remember walking into the Louvre. I had no idea that painting was actually a painting, and just there was this small living room, and I walked in the door, and then I turned back to see the wall that was in my back, and that was like this painting that for a while I had in my phone, but like instead of being the size of my phone, was like 5 meters tall or something like that. And that was one of the most profound moments I had, and made me think like this feeling of connection, of beauty, of like that specific feeling which I cannot yet articulate with words, was something that really made me think this is the way to get into a modern golden age. And so those two are two values that I really think that we will embrace in order to get a modern golden age: courage and beauty. What are some of the values that you believe we'll have?
Yeah, but I love those, and I love that you say courage, because I feel like you're really embodying that, and I love that you're wearing orange, because orange to me like represents courage for whatever reason.
Awesome.
And then it's also like this very loud print, and so it all feels like very courageous.
Yeah.
And then I also think about like, oh, what does courageous beauty look like, or like acts of courageous beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great question. What does it look like to you?
I was thinking about like random gifts of, or random acts of kindness, like random acts of like where you just like you pay for the person behind you, and like, or you give, you put on in somebody's mailbox like something, like some seeds, some flower seeds or something. I don't know what this would be, but there's so many things you could do.
Yeah, that's a great question.
What do you think of?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. The first one was, as you said, like donating something or giving something to someone. But I do believe that, like, so yeah, this has nothing to do with it. But my role, I studied music, but I had a wrist injury, and that made me change my professional course. But I do believe that there are certain kinds of art pieces that are a demonstration of courageous beauty, and making more of those should be something that is aligned with the modern golden age as well. Like creating art that shows how you truly feel is something that's really hard, and to play a song that demonstrates how you feel, or to paint a painting that really demonstrates how it's hard. It's you feel that it's scary, but to do it is definitely something that really takes courage, and it ends up being something beautiful. So I think that's my answer, but I'll definitely need to think about it after the show, and try to get to a more concrete answer. But turning back, so what are some of the values that you think that make part of this modern golden age?
Yeah, well, I mean, authenticity, like that's what when you're talking about that, that reminds me of that. And I think authenticity um, is courageous. And the more that people are authentically themselves, I've been, speaking of music, I've been watching a lot of like Aurora. I don't know if she's a
Oh,
kind of a
yeah.
pop artist.
Yeah. She's the singer. Yeah.
Yeah, but she's very authentic. She's very authentic, and she's very like authentically herself, I feel. And so I've been really inspired by that. And then but yeah, values, I'd say maybe conscientiousness. And conscientiousness, I would say, in like understanding how, like, the full loop of everything, that of all of our actions. So like, okay, if I purchase, this sort of thing, who was that made by? What were the dyes made in this textile? I guess I'm talking about a garment. What's the life cycle of this garment going to be? Is this just going to be, I'm gonna, it's $12 at H&M, and then I'm going to wear it once and then I'm going to throw it out. Like, that's a really, really not very conscientious life cycle versus, how can we honor everybody at every step of the process of, of this garment. And then conscientiousness, and then, I don't know, just plants. I just want to see more plants around.
I love as a value plants. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I actually had a friend that I've met in because my house my house is the first floor, but in the zero floor, it's a restaurant and a bar, and I've met a bunch of people there. One of them is like this. And I say this in a kind way, like crazy flower lady, and she's awesome. And one of the things that I had no idea, which is like, by having more plants around you, actually your well-being increases just by them being there. And of course, there's all this explanation because the air gets better and you breathe more oxygen and all that stuff. But just the visual aspects of plants make total sense. And let me ask you something, which is, what are some of the more general behaviors that you believe we should have in order to get into a modern golden age?
Yeah, that's great.
You mentioned like having like this conscious of how, like, specifically how the fabric of your clothes and how your clothing relates to the whole world and different elements in the journey to get to that specific piece of clothing. But what are other habits or practices that you believe we should have?
Yeah. I mean, I think that what you're doing right now, which is like, you're networking, you're building like relationships. I think that we, to some degree, I found that my life has improved so much by just being connected to more people who have like interesting ideas, who are, positively making an impact on the world. And I think that the more that we can do that and connect, that I think seems really important.
Yeah. And like, for instance, I do, even though I get your answer, like, I do believe that, especially since you're someone who comes from the sustainability space, you maybe have some concrete practices that one may do in order to improve that sustainability. And as for someone who's definitely an outsider, like, if someone is listening to this podcast and starts to understand, like, oh, okay, so in order to get to a modern golden age, we'll definitely need to be more sustainable. How can I do that? What would be some practices that you believe actually that people could start doing?
Yeah, great question. I mean, one thing is to just think about your actions in terms of, like, there's lots and lots. We actually have enough clothes. We can buy used clothes. We can get used furniture. We don't have to be creating materials from scratch all the time. We don't have to be buying the new iPhone all the time. And flying definitely is impactful. How can we be conscious of this? I'm terrible at this. I still fly quite a bit. But then also, like, okay, what are you eating? How is it packaged? Definitely animal products are more impactful. So you can think about all of that. But I think that there's also, like, what are you doing in the world? So if you're working for some company that's kind of destroying the planet, then you can eat vegan and not fly all you want, but you're still contributing to to a world. So I think, I don't know, I think I don't want to make anyone's behavior, because people, maybe they're supporting their family and they need this job or whatever. So I don't mean to be criticizing anyone, but also like, I think that we can all, just it's also hard because it's like I really dislike plastic, but like it's very hard to exist without using a lot of plastic. And I went a day without being like zero waste, and then I like wanted a sandwich that was in plastic and broke down. So I think it's challenging. I think I have a lot of room for growth as well.
Yeah. So I'll that's a great answer, because even though you just mentioned a bunch of them, right? Having, because I truly believe that it starts with being more conscious about your own choices, and like really thinking through some things that we just automatically do, and actually make an effort to think about the impact that that specific choice will have on the planet. I'm not saying that you should question every choice that you're going to make, but like maybe if you're eating, all your meals are like this meat, maybe try to vary a little bit. Or if you buy a new shirt every day, maybe try to buy it used at least. So yeah, it makes a little sense. So Alexandra, I do want to finish on a specific note, which is, you said that your love language is book recommendations, and I share that too as well. So I really love people recommending books. So I have a bunch of questions about books. So the first one is, for someone who doesn't understand anything about sustainability, what are some of the books that they should read?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I really was impacted by there's this book that I'm not remembering the name of, but I just read Kim Stanley Robinson's Ministry for the Future, and it's about climate change. And I think people don't actually, I don't know. I think not everybody kind of understands the impact of climate change. And it's not just, some coastal cities will be affected. It's like, no, there's mass migrations, there's disease, there's food shortages, there's war due to food shortages, and extreme weather events everywhere, massive like failures of the ecological system that we need to eat and to live. So I think that, you're trying to end on a positive note.
No. But look, it is what it is, right? I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, but so Kim, I think that this book, Ministry of the Future, does a lovely way of like, it showcases in a story format, like it's like showing the world adapting to climate change, or just like not really adapting, but kind of what's happening. And then ultimately it's a positive book. So I really, that'd be my recommendation at the moment.
Yeah, I would have like to me, because I only recently I started to go through that area, and one of the books that I've been really enjoying, in fact, I've been reading it really slow so I could try to understand it all, is a book called How Soon Is Now. I don't know if you've read it. It's like it's by this writer, and he basically wants to build like a concrete version of a modern golden age. And I think it's Daniel Pickett. I'm not sure, but he basically goes through the book explaining what are some of the changes that we actually need to do in order to get to that specific point where we have a concrete modern golden age. And one of the first things that he talks about is sustainability, and that's why I got into it. And I'll definitely read the one that you just recommended. So that's it. Now, second book recommendation about crypto. So for someone who is starting to get into that space, do you have any book recommendation at all?
Wow.
And here we can expand the definition. It doesn't have to be a book, but like, what are some resources that one can go to in order to better understand it?
Yeah. I would say I have not read many books on crypto, so I can't say that. Actually, there is Strength in Numbers, which Bill Laboon wrote, and it's kind of a novel, and it's in a novel format, helping you understand the basics of crypto. And so that is a kind of a novel format. Otherwise, I really enjoyed A16Z's. They had a crypto startup school, and that was like it's interesting from a more business perspective of crypto. So often I'll direct people to that series. But there's a lot of like cool, like, if you just like, how does blockchain work? There's a lot of really cool, interesting, and well done YouTubes on that.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So last question about books. What, like, book recommendation as a love language assumes that someone somewhere around your history has recommended you a book that made you feel really good. At least I assume that. Like, what was the best book that someone else recommended to you?
Ooh, that's a great question. I like want to cheat and look at all my my library.
From the top of your head, we can always then I'll write an article about our conversation and we'll put a bunch of them there. But right now,
okay, yeah, I would say just going back to the philanthropy. I heard about The Soul of Money. Somebody must have mentioned it to me at some time, but I recently read that, and it really changed my relationship with money, how I view money, how I view giving money, and it's written by Lynn Twist, and she lived her entire life as doing fundraising. So she had so many conversations about money. She started a nonprofit to protect the rainforest and indigenous peoples there. And it's an incredible book because it changed my view of money from something of scarcity. I mean, that's the conversation that we tend to have around money. So scarce, like just need to grab onto it and hoard it, to being one of sufficiency and also how do you express your values through giving money. And I just had such a refreshing experience of empowerment around money and feeling so much less constrained by fear and scarcity. So It's really powerful.
Awesome. Alexandra, thank you so much. Last question. If anyone wants to connect with you or follow your projects, what's the best place to do so?
Yeah. So I'm pretty active on Twitter at ALXHeller, HELLER. And then I also have my blog, alexandraheller.com.
And we'll link to those in the description. Alexandra, thank you so much for doing this. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed our conversation. To anyone listening, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast platform, and I'll see you next week for another episode. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.